Welcome to our short series on being mentally or mindfully fit. It's essential that we have mental fitness because without it, we're going to be so distracted and perplexed and overwhelmed in this world in which we're in. Testing 1, 2. We're going to talk about things which are asserted, not necessarily argued. Have you ever heard a quote that goes like this? I know you have actually. Winners never quit. Is that a good quote? Well, I suppose it depends. I like what Matthew McConaughey says in his book, Green Lights. He says, persist, pivot, or quit are always up to us. But I like what he's immediately doing. He's not saying winners always persist. He's saying that there's potentially some other options here. It's up to us. Let's think about this quote for a moment. When should we persist? Well, I think we persist when what we are doing is just so true of what it is that we stand for, who we are, what we want. Then persist and grit is probably very, very much a good thing. It aligns to us. We probably need to persist when we maybe have a habit of quitting or a pattern of quitting. Then we'll probably look at somebody and say, persist. We also need to persist if the reason we're wanting to stop is founded in limiting beliefs of I can't do this, or somebody else is better than me. Those would probably be very, very good reasons to say to somebody, push through, grit, we need you to carry on. Let's talk about pivot. Pivot, I understand best through a quote by Will Smith. He says these words, change is not easy, but impermanence is the only thing we can truly rely on. And then listen to these beautiful words. He says, if we are unwilling or unable to pivot and adapt to the fluctuating tides of life, we won't enjoy being here. Pivot is about fluctuating tides. It's about things changing. And we might need to adjust the goal, or we might need to adjust the method, or we might need to adjust the focus. But in essence, we're carrying on, but with an adjusted lens. Steve Jobs from Apple did this when they went into the iPhone. Jobs had been quoted as saying, I'm not interested in going into the phone market because I don't want to be dictated to by the carriers. But one day a group of people explained to him that this beautiful success of the iPod could soon find its way onto a phone. So what did Jobs do and what did Apple do? They pivoted. And we know what a successful story that one is. But then we get maybe the most provocative word of all three here, quit. Winners never quit, remember, that's what the slogan says. But when might we quit? Well, perhaps you need to quit when what you're doing is no longer aligning to your values, no longer aligning to your sense of purpose, no longer aligning to what you stand for. Quit. Or perhaps you need to quit when you know you cannot win at what you're doing. Sometimes life reveals information to us and we can't win. Susan David tells in her book Emotional Agility the story of Lyndon Johnson, the President of America, who didn't want to quit the Vietnam War because he didn't want to be the first president to lose a war. Well, I think quit needed to be seen as in a lot more positive light there. And sometimes we quit because the opportunity costs are just too high. So here's a thought. If you're in a hole, stop digging. Don't escalate commitment. But winners never quit would say to us, just keep going regardless. So McConaughey gives us these three words, and as you can see, there's a bit of gray here. We love persist. But sometimes we need to pivot, probably more often in the world today, and sometimes we need to quit. All three of these require courage. Persist, courage to carry on, pushing through. But do you know that pivot and quit also require courage? Because as human beings, we often don't want to change our mind. It takes a lot of courage to say, I'm seeing something differently. It seems as if we prefer the feeling of being right rather than being right. So when you hold on to those early estimates, those early plans, and you say, I'm just going to push, 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 it could be because you value the feeling of being right rather than being right. Mental fitness is about challenging some things that we often don't challenge. It's about challenging great quotes like "winners never quit" and making sure that what we hold on to is right within context. When we do so, we enable our mental, mindful fitness.